Hey, hi, it's Liz again from the Wholehearted English Teacher. Today, I just wanted to give you a brief overview of my semester one bundle, as well as to share the current discount that's available for two of my best bundles, which is the semester one and then the full course bundle for both for AP Literature. So to start, we have Unit 1. It's a short fiction unit. This unit serves as a great introduction to the skills and enduring understandings of this course. Students will closely read and analyze and annotate, first independently, then in a group jigsaw setting. They will become experts on one short story. They'll create a literary argument and make a one-pager. If you haven't used one-pagers yet, Google it. Take a look at this unit more closely, and you will see how this invaluable tool is just life-changing when it comes to getting students to engage in literary analysis. So once students have completed the group jigsaw, they've reported out, the BIRDS assessment is next, and it provides an opportunity for further literary argument practice, as well as engaging in a creative writing assignment in the end, where they get to basically finish what Daphne du Maurier started. She ends on a bit of a cliffhanger, so students using the stylistic elements that are unique to du Maurier's writing, as well as determining what they feel is the meaning of the work as a whole, putting those two things together to complete the story. Next, we have the first poetry unit of the course of the year. I don't know about you guys, but for some reason, students come to AP Literature completely turned off from poetry, or they are just absolutely petrified of it. And this hurts my heart immensely. But I have found with this unit that I'm able to ease students into poetry analysis. In the end, they might not love it, but if I can get them to hate it just a little bit less, then that's a win for me. That's pure success. So as with the first short story unit, this unit begins with students just exploring poetry, with the essential skills, enduring understandings. They have opportunities for annotations, graphic organizers, working with their peers to provide poetry literary arguments. And with the foundation started, we then move on to Sylvia Plath's Lady Lazarus, complete with a writing assignment and a visual interpretation project. And you can see some samples of those right here. This poem truly hooks them. So if you haven't had a chance to read it, or you have not done this with your students in the past, then I truly encourage you to do so. The symbolism, allusions, metaphoric language of this piece are just awe-inspiring. But I digress. Lastly, this unit concludes with one of my personal favorites, Theodore Roethke's My Papa's Waltz. Here, students analyze the contrasting perspectives. Is this a happy memory? Is this a memory that's rooted in trauma? The contrasting images and diction, in order to prepare for an extended writing piece on their interpretation of the poem. So from there, I have this fun short activity for you. You can do this before the poetry unit, the end of the poetry unit, in the midst of it, or really at any point when you feel like your students just need something that is rigorous, that is purposeful, but just a little bit fun. So students are given Emily Dickinson's I Heard a Fly Buzz When I Died. And really you can do this with any poem. But as we know, Dickinson is just a genius when it comes to purposeful diction and syntax. So this poem, one of many, works perfectly. I cut up all the words, and then students have to put the poem back together. Now, of course, they don't know what poem it is. They know nothing about it whatsoever. So they focus in on the words, and together as a group, they come up with sort of their own literary interpretation of what this poem is. and then they share it with their classmates, and then eventually we end up analyzing Dickinson's piece as well. This activity is just, it's perfect, as I said. It allows them to come up with their own interpretations. It allows them to understand the importance of diction and syntax and organization and word placement and such. The next unit is our first longer fiction piece. And here's one of my favorites. Zora Neale Hurston's Their Eyes Were Watching God. It's a text that's filled with just beautiful prose, and for me, one of the most fulfilling character developments to date. And have I mentioned the symbolism? It has me swooning every time. So once students have reached this third unit of the course, they have a pretty solid introduction to literary argument. Still have a ways to go, but they are getting pretty good at it. This unit begins with each student being assigned one chapter, sometimes two, depending on the class size. If the class size is really small, I often pick up a couple and have the students grade me. I go through the same process, and they love doing that. Basically, they are in charge of leading their peers through their chapter. So they use the key questions, they use the ideas as a guide. They walk us through the chapter, asking us questions to propel discussion, focusing on passages for deep analysis. Each student, again, creates a one-pager. I cannot stress enough how valuable this is at the beginning of AP Literature. Here, they sometimes might include words, but it's really about symbols and colors and images and placement and organization. And then as a class, myself included, we try to break it down. What is the literary argument that is here? What are some of the interpretations that are being made? And as you can see, I have some samples from the first 9 chapters of the unit. The second half of the unit has students develop a literary argument in which they further analyze one of the most prominent symbols of the novel, the horizon. The horizon is a devoted symbol throughout Janie's life journey. Students will make a claim regarding the horizon and Janie, a claim that's based upon their own insightful interpretation of their claim, and then in the end, they will create a visual interpretation of that same claim using images and passages from the text. They will then conclude this with a paper in which they develop that literary argument further. And so I just have some 3 examples here of visuals that my students have created. So the top 2 are individual, and then the bottom 3, those ones go together and progress from left to right. This is added to the unit. This is added, I would say, to this course. This can be done at any time. I typically like to do it during either the short story unit at the beginning or the poetry unit, because you want to make sure those guys they keep reading. I provide them with a list of our texts from our school, but I also encourage them to do a little digging on their own. We just review the pieces, the text, and decide if it's appropriate for AP Literature. As you all have noticed the last couple of years, I've been really pushing more contemporary pieces like Homegoing and Purple Hibiscus, because we have seen those pop up more and more on the FRQ 3 literary argument. As they read, they focus on characterization and forming a symbol to represent a character. Students will then actually make the symbol, so whether it's something 3D like a sculpture, or if they want to do a painting or a drawing, and then they essentially write a paper that focuses the literary argument on how that symbol represents the character's development, journey, etc. We then do kind of a gallery walk or presentation, depending on the vibe of the group. All right, the last unit of semester 1 is the second short fiction unit. And as one would expect, the rigor increases with intensity for each unit, but there's also a noticeable difference between the 3 short fiction units as well as between the 3 poetry and then the 3 longer fiction. This unit starts with students being placed into groups for a collaborative writing assignment. Catherine Bush's The Birthday Party, lovely piece. This prompt will be specific to the short story. It will use the stable prompt wording put out by the College Board. It will include, it will note which skills are focused on with the prompt. Students will be given graphic organizers, scoring guides for annotations, and their one-pagers. In small groups, students will read, analyze, and annotate, plan, and organize a response to the provided literary prompt. They will be working together in order to construct that defensible thesis statement, establish that line of reasoning, and make sure that the commentary and the evidence is concrete and balanced. In the end, groups will exchange and do some mock scoring. This is by far one of the most meaningful and beneficial activities that you can do in your AP classroom. It's authentic, students learn and grow together, and as a huge bonus, they are doing some grading for you. So, even if you don't do this on the regular, you're not using this unit, I encourage you by all means to do some mock grading, mock scoring with your students. But I digress. But in all seriousness, it gives them just some really good practice with that scoring guide, and it's really important that they are super familiar with that. With the mock scoring finished, students then repeat this process individually with another short story. So there are 9 other short story options. I love to make sure that I at least have 2 students doing one or doing each of the short stories that I assign. So sometimes I might have to eliminate a couple to make sure that this happens, because it makes a great discussion when we're doing our mock scoring, when we have 2 pieces that are written on the same text. Next, in this unit, students are given 84 thematic subjects that are all related to the human condition. So anything from family to fate and free will to sacrifice. Students are divided into groups, or you can have them do it independently. Give them a list of those thematic subjects, and you can do all 84. You can pick and choose. It's entirely up to you. And they are to craft defensible thesis statements connecting that thematic subject to a universal idea that's related to the human condition. So I have a couple examples here. The relationship between father and son is one that is not easily replicated, nor is it easily understood. So this one, the student was using family, narrowed it down, focused on father and son relationships. And then this one here focuses on sacrifice. From here, I suggest that if you're able to, put these on slips of paper, hang them up around your room. It's a great way to add a little splash of color. I wasn't able to do that this year with COVID, so instead I made sort of a digital anthology and distributed that to students electronically. And really after this activity, I noticed a dramatic change in the level of sophistication for the thesis statements, as well as their overall ability to come up with some real insightful and in-depth interpretations of text. Obviously, in using these statements, they need to make sure that the context is supplied in those introductory paragraphs. And, this is a great way to practice that. But nonetheless, this is an amazing, amazing tool. So to end the unit, students are given a prompt that focuses on the human condition. They have to select 3 of the 10 short stories from the unit, utilize those thematic subjects they worked with from the last activity, and then construct a 4 to 6 page literary analysis. The semester will close out with a midterm exam. This is a great follow-up to the previous unit, the short fiction unit. There's excerpts from The Awakening, Anna Karenina, and Frankenstein. Each excerpt has a pro-style prompt that's designed using the new stable wording. This is just a great way to close out that first semester. This is a bonus, the Commonplace Book Project. Like a couple other things, I was not able to do it this past year just due to COVID. sort of that one extra thing. I also find great success with students actually physically doing it in a notebook, which is hard to do, of course, when you're not always in person. But essentially, this was a sort of year-long project, a scrapbook of their experiences with writing and reading throughout the year. And so I encourage them to jot down quotes that they encountered from anything that they were reading, whether it was related to AP Lit or not, or I've done this with my AP Language students as well, and just to sort of interact with that text. So there's some details there. But now let's get to the good stuff. So this bundle, the semester one bundle, it includes the first 4 units, so 2 short fiction units, a longer fiction, Their Eyes Are Watching God, 1 poetry unit, a poetry activity, a midterm exam, independent reading project, and then, of course, the commonplace book project. This bundle, as well as my full course bundle, which includes all that, plus the second half of the unit, are both currently 30% off in my TPT store. Typically, bundles in my store about 20% off. When TPT has their sales, that gets bumped up to 25%. So this is a great deal in order to have some of that planning done for you as you prepare for whatever this year has to offer. So thank you so much for listening. Drop questions if you happen to have any. I hope you have a great year and hope to hear from you soon.